Ooh, everybody good? Well, I want to thank you for being here and spending some time this morning with me. I really appreciate it. Um, have an announcement to make today, and appreciate you guys allowing me to make this announcement through you. Sheila and I have made a decision that effective June 30th of 2024, we're going to retire from The Ohio State University. Um, had a great opportunity to work with a lot of people here, and I just want to thank the leadership of Ohio State. During my tenure, they provided me an unbelievable opportunity to lead this program, and so the last 19 years, or 18 years, and started my 19th, has been phenomenal. The presidents and the board of trustees that I've worked for have just been tremendous and just great people, great opportunities they provided me. I've always believed that a leader seeks to be the right person at the right time in the life of an institution. And I just believe that July of 2024 is the right time to welcome in new leadership, to build on what we've already achieved. Making this announcement now affords me the opportunity to work with my colleagues in the President's Cabinet and hopefully facilitate a transition for the next president once she or he is appointed. But after a 39-year career in intercollegiate athletics and administration, Sheila and I look forward to our next chapter when we plan to spend more consistent quality time with our children, our grandchildren, and our extended family. I also want to thank Buckeye Nation for its support. At Ohio State, we are truly blessed to have the best fans in the land. I think we all know that, and we're just fortunate to have them. Along with Buckeye Nation, I also want to thank the leadership of our business community. I'm immensely grateful to the network of business leaders who have invested in me and invested in our success. I want to thank the members of the media. I understand and I truly respect the job that you have to do, even though sometimes I don't always agree with what you say. At the end of the day, you guys do a tremendous job, and you have a tough job, and it's gotten tougher over the years. So thank you for everything that you do. I also wish to thank the many donors, the great experiences that I've enjoyed and special memories that were created, and their commitment and generosity to our vision has been phenomenal, and I just want to thank them for their great support and all of the generosity of Buckeye Nation. I also want to thank the coaches and support staff with whom I've been blessed to work. I've been fortunate to work with some of the best in the business, and I'm aware that I stood on their shoulders, and this last year I will stand on their shoulders. And they're the finest in the country, and every single day they come to work to try and ensure that our athletic department is the premier athletic department in the country, and I want to thank them for their great work. Lastly, and most importantly, it's been a pleasure every single day and an honor to wake up and come to work and try and create an environment for our student athletes to be successful. They're talented, they're gifted, they're the best there is, and it's just been my honor and my inspiration every single day to work for them. This past year, we witnessed unprecedented performances. Our teams finished third in the Directors' Cup. 95% of our graduates found jobs or going professional or going to go to graduate school. We hit our best APR score in the history at 993, so it was a phenomenal year for our student athletes. So it's unbelievable. So I'm extremely proud of the individual team and team championships that have been won during my tenure, but I'm more proud of our efforts to develop student athletes holistically, personally, and to become future leaders. And so I'm really proud of them. As Senior Vice President, I also have the role, along with my colleague Mike Papadakis, to lead business advancement. And business advancement continues to do a great job with concerts in this community, and particularly with our partnership with Nationwide Arena. Our trademark and licensing program is the #1 program in the country. It's evolved in so many different ways. And we've optimized the use of all of our facilities because of the business advancement efforts. Just really proud of them. But most importantly and lastly, I'm really fortunate to have a wife who understands my world. We all understand that. You got to have a partner that is supportive, and she's been supportive for a long time, and is a great friend, great colleague. Fortunately, she had been in the business, so she appreciates it, but she's been my emotional support through good times and bad times, so I don't know where the hell she is. She was here a minute ago. Love you, baby. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Sheila. So I also want to thank my children and grandchildren because they've embraced Buckeye Nation in a big way and taken advantage of the opportunities to party. So really appreciate their support throughout this time. We have another year to chase a lot of opportunities, and we're going to chase them hard like we always do. So I'm here to answer any questions you have, and I know all of you thought that I was coming here to talk about realignment, so I'll answer those questions too. So I'm really proud of Jerry. He did a phenomenal job of keeping this quiet for a while because, you know, we had the shelter of that issue. And, so thank you, Jerry, for your great work. I'm so proud to work with you every single day. So
we'll open it up to the floor for questions. Far right over here, Spencer Holbrook, Lettermen Row.
Yeah, Gene, you cite your family and when you spend time with your grandkids, but with everything that's going on in college athletics right now, why now to choose to step to the side and bring somebody new in?
yeah, you know, it's a great question. I've always embraced change. You know, this is when I'm 76 and I came here at what, 49 or 48, I forgot, you know. So we've seen a lot of change over that time. And so those changes were not a part of this decision. You know, everything that's happening, some of it I've seen before. You know, realignment, I was blessed to be a part of the committee that went from the Big 8 to the Big 12. So realignment's not new to me. NIL is new to me, but you know, the transfer portal is not new to me. You know, our Olympic sports have been dealing with that for years. And so, you know, the changes in the industry is not what caused me to say I needed to step away. I've always felt, and my mentors have always said, you will know when it's time. You'll know. And this summer, Sheena and I sat down, and she was asking me a million questions, and I just said, it's time. You know, and I do believe that. What I said is, there's the right time for certain leaders at the right time of an institution. And I really believe with this presidential change, which will be highly positive, whoever they hire gives her or him the opportunity to hire their leader and make a run and build on what these coaches and staff and student athletes have already done.
We'll go third row middle, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Gene, I mean, just when you kind of see, you know, all these changes that are coming, I guess, you know, when you look at, you know, who could fill your shoes and kind of lead the athletic department next, kind of what would be your advice to them? What do you think are maybe the biggest things that they're going to need to be prepared for as they ultimately take over the Ohio State Athletic Department?
Hopefully, I mean, they're going to hire someone skilled and, you know, with experience. So, you know, someone hopefully with a high IQ and EQ, you know, someone that understands the value of people. It's a huge characteristic. Someone that holds true to their values of integrity and respect for others and excellence in every single thing you do. But they're going to have to be patient. You know, in this ever-changing world that we're dealing with, you got to hit pause and don't overreact, and just be patient and be curious and inquisitive, and you know, just ask a lot of questions. And then at some point, you have to be authoritative and lead. But you just can't overreact in this space. It's just too crazy. And then, you know, they need to keep the trajectory in what we do, this culture. We recruit talented and gifted young people with great character. And that has meant so much to our ability to be successful in the classroom, in this community, and on the competitive in the competitive arena. Character is critical, and so we've made a significant improvement in that space. You guys see it. You interview those kids every day. And so that person, whoever it is going to have to embrace what we've done, but also, those characteristics that I mentioned earlier, hopefully they'll have.
You had said a couple of years ago that you thought it would be a good idea for FBS football to split away from the NCAA. With everything that's happening, do you still think that's the case?
I think there should be a new structure. I threw that out there just to be a bombshell. There's some people in the industry that can, throw things out there and take the heat. And I'm one of those people. But we need to look at how we're structured differently. I don't know if that's the answer. We just need to keep evaluating how we should be structured, and that relates to even to our scheduling as we integrate Oregon and Washington. Now we need to make sure that our Flex Protect Plus model is appropriate, or should we change it? So. I don't know if if that's the right structure, but somewhere along the line we need to think differently about football. We really do. And, it's just so important, and we just need to think differently about it.
Second row middle, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
You mentioned that obviously there is no president right now. So I guess how are you envisioning this transition happening with that sort of leadership absence? Are you working with university to integrate that person, and how does that work with your successor?
Yeah, great question, Nathan. So our president's cabinet, which is all the vice presidents and senior vice presidents, we meet every Tuesday, and we're working closely with our board of trustees as we manage the institution in the absence of a president. And that's working well right now. At some point, we do need a leader. And so hopefully when that leader is hired and appointed, I'll be able to connect with them right away. They won't be here right away, but hopefully, I'm able to, do a Zoom or meet them in person somewhere and talk about our program and give that person some recommendations on the characteristics that they might consider as they look for a replacement here. And then from there, it's just all a matter of timing, when that person's appointed, when they're here, and how they want to do it. If they want to appoint a search committee, hire a search firm, I just don't know, but I'll defer to whatever they want to do.
It's just to clarify on that, the search for your successor, does it start now? Do you
No.
know? Does it start?
It will start. I'm sorry, Nathan. It'll start when the new president's here. Unless something happens and they're not here over the next years, then the trustees will conduct that. But I anticipate that there'll be a new president, and that's that person's hire.
To ask on the expansion side of things, just to go back to things you said in the past. Last July, you and President Johnson were using words like huge and significant to talk about the media rights deal that was coming.
Mm-hmm.
Then after the media rights deal came, you expressed some skepticism about adding other teams.
Mm-hmm.
And like Oregon and Washington were out there at the time because
Mm-hmm.
it was going to dilute that media rights deal. So do you have any even ballpark details about what kind of new revenue is coming in that makes this good or palatable, or however you want to?
Yeah, so it was not dilutive to us. So the original dollar figures that we had prior to Oregon and Washington coming in stayed the same for the institutions that were already in. Fox brought new money to the table for Oregon and for Washington that they provided. And I don't know the exact numbers. It's somewhere between 30 and 35 million. I just don't know what the exact number is. So it wasn't dilutive to us. So the long-term play is that hopefully when we go to negotiate the next deal, there's valuable inventory. So year 5 or 6, whenever, assuming it's Tony, goes to negotiate a new deal, you have Oregon and Washington in your portfolio.
We'll go third row
Does that answer your question, Nathan?
Excuse me. Third row right, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Gene, what are you proudest of over your tenure here? I mean,
Yeah.
as specific as you can be, and then on the flip side, what biggest challenge, toughest moment?
Yeah. Oh, wow, Rob, you're going deep on me, man. There's so many great moments. You know, it's funny. The national championship in football was special. You know, the 3 national championships in volleyball, men's volleyball, was special. The wrestling national championship was unreal. I think I was in North Carolina with women's basketball and had to fly to St. Louis in order to catch that, you know, to see those young men perform. So there's been championships and individual student athletes who, you know, just been so impressive. Christina Manning in track was, I mean, she was just fun to watch. So it's just so many of those. But I'm most proud of the fact that we've been able to create a culture where we develop the student athlete holistically. And that means so much to me, Rob. It really does. That it took us a little bit to transition to that, to make sure that when that student athlete leaves our little cocoon, she or he is ready. They're ready for the next chapter in their life. And we didn't do that well when I first came. We didn't. And I have to compliment my teammates, everybody, because they all embrace that vision of making sure we challenge the student athlete early in their career, their freshman year and sophomore year, to make them figure out what path they might want to be on, and put in place the program. So I'm most proud of that. Our kids have great character. They're really good people, and that's cool to me. Challenge, 2011 was hell. That was painful. The student athletes who were impacted didn't deserve the penalties that they had to deal with. That was hard. People were affected negatively, and that was a hard time. And so, helping Luke Fickle through that year was hard. That was really challenging, and I have to compliment him for his resiliency and his commitment, and just his stick-to-itness to try and keep our program afloat. So that was a hard year, dog years, and obviously COVID. We all had that. I mean, I shouldn't talk about that because that should be all in our rearview mirror, but because we all went through that. But you guys know that story, and so that was a hard year.
Right next door, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
You mentioned thinking differently about football. UCLA head coach Chip Kelly came out this week and said that the top, say, 64 football programs in the nation should do what Notre Dame does and just be independent in football and in conferences and everything else. And basically just create one big football conference. Your thoughts on that, the viability of
It's
something
interesting.
like that?
Interesting thought. I haven't thought about that, but no, I don't have a whole lot of comments on that. I'm sure there's a lot of ideas out there. I haven't studied that, but it's an interesting idea to throw on the table
How difficult would that be
for the next people.
Yeah. How difficult would it be to herd all of those cats TV-wise?
It'll be, you look at what's happening in the ACC and the grant of rights and things of that nature. You have those type of things, and even my idea that I threw out there, you got to think long haul. Those ideas don't happen overnight. So you have to say to yourself that that's the future model. That's what we should work towards. And I haven't looked at his idea, so, there's building blocks to get to that. But at the end of the day, whatever model that is evolved, from committee or whoever, it's not going to happen overnight. So.
Would there need to be like a czar over?
I've always felt that there should be an individual that's responsible for college football. It kind of fits that model that Dan raised, is that there ought to be an individual that wakes up every single day and that's their job. And rules, all that stuff, it should be compressed into one unit. And it's decentralized in different areas now. So it's too big, it's too important, and it's going to get bigger. So anyway.
Front row right, Austin Ward, rivals, dotting the I's.
Gene, you
Rivals
never-
what?
And dotting the I's.
Oh,
And
okay.
97.1 The Fan on the podcast.
Holy smoke, what a brand.
That's right. That's right. I am a businessman.
Gene, you never said this publicly. I think many of us, or some of us, thought that maybe 4 or 5 years ago would have been that right time that you've talked about for retiring, and then you had the transition to Ryan Day, you had COVID. Do you think at all that the timeline for yourself shifted? You stayed longer because of everything that was going on around here and in college sports? Maybe Sheila can answer it.
That's great. She's over there texting, so she didn't hear your. This is great. She didn't hear it, but yeah, you hit on it. So every summer, to your point, she and I sit down and literally think about, okay, what are we gonna attack this year? We got our long-term goals, right? But at the end of the day, what are we gonna attack and accomplish this year? And so those years, I just felt like new leadership couldn't handle those things. I have historical knowledge. I have experience. I need to help my teammates get through those times, or everything that you just listed. And it was it was right for me to be here during those times. But where we are now, none of us can see around the corner. So, I got 11 months, so there's something might be coming out there. But at the end of the day, I just feel comfortable that this team and this culture and everything is right for a new leader to transition in and not have a whole lot of bumps. So that's kind of how I look at it.
This is probably, unfair for you to address it specifically, but
They don't ask it.
Well, because of the challenges of this job and the institutional knowledge that you talked about, do you think that in 11 months' time, someone is going to have to come in here who already has that, some institutional knowledge?
I don't know. That's really up to the next president. That would be up to what they're looking for in that person. I just think institutional knowledge is important, but I'm not making that higher, if that answers your question.
You don't think you'll have any input on that?
Oh, I don't know. It depends on the next person. They might not like me.
Second row middle, Doug Maurice, the podcast.
Gene, when you think about all the changes that are going to be implemented now, you're saying the new person coming in hopefully won't have too many bumps. Do you think there are a lot of things ahead, though, just in terms of how an 18-team Big Ten is going to work and all the logistics of that? And again, you guys will be working on that because they're right. You're timing this not coincidentally to them joining the Big Ten and you're leaving around the same time next summer. Do you think there are going to be a lot of challenges just with the devil in the details of all of this that the next person will face, or do you think it'll all be smoothed out?
No, it's funny. It's a matter of how you look at things. I don't look at those as challenges. I look at those as opportunities. The merging in USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington, the 12-team playoff. Those decisions were made with good input and with good knowledge and et cetera. So now that's the work, is actually taking advantage of those decisions. I don't see those as challenges. That's the business. That's what you do. Now, challenges are things that happen around the corner that you don't see. That's coming at you that you got to respond to, and that's where you got to hit pause, use your teammates, be smart. But those things that we're talking about, the changes in the industry, I don't see those as bumps. I really don't. The transfer portal, this has to be tweaked. The days, the timing, all that stuff. But that's the business. It's always been the business. So I don't see those as bumps, if that makes sense. Our culture's good. Our people are good. We're on a good trajectory with everything else, academically. So I think the person's going to inherit something pretty special.
When you think about the future of college sports, that will no longer be your job to worry about, but you'll still care. Are you worried? Are you optimistic? What do you think when you're sitting back in retirement and watching? Do you think you'll feel good, or do you think you'll think, oh man, what's going on here?
No, it's funny. I probably will, after I finish, having my glass of water. But the reality is, I know that college athletics is going to change more. It's changed a lot already. And I can't sit here, and I don't think any of us can sit here and say, I wish it was like when I played, or I wish it was like when I coached. That's unrealistic thought process. The ecosystem we serve today is totally different, totally different. Their experiences are significantly different. So you have to have this mindset that change is coming. And if you're in it for the right reasons, then you ultimately embrace that change and figure out how you adapt to it. If your goal is to be the best at what you do, then you embrace that change. You shift. One of the greatest books I ever read was John Maxwell's book, Leaders Shift. And it talks about how leaders have to begin to shift because change is inevitable. We all deal with it. So it's just a matter of how you deal with it. So I don't think college athletics is ever going to go in the tank. It's going to be different. There's going to be new legislation. There's going to be a new structure here and there. The student athletes are going to be different. But how do you embrace that change? How do you make the best of it? It's the attitude you have to have, if that makes sense.
Third row right, Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Gene, how has your job evolved? I mean, like you've been through a lot of change. How has your job evolved as you try to deal with the transfer portal and then also try to deal with realignment that seems to come up every couple months?
Yeah, it's that's it. You know, it's kind of a little bit what I was talking to Doug about. You know, you have to first and foremost. And there's a lot of layers to that question. So you know, if you're focused on being the best you want to be, then that means the team around you. You know, we have 523 employees in athletics and business advancement. You got to really pay attention to that culture and that environment. And we have a significant number of employees who are just starting in the industry. So making sure that you create a culture where they're being developed, where they're growing. And so, because it starts right there. If you don't have good people, you can forget it all. So what's changed for me is recognizing that their experiences have changed and me being sensitive to that and humanistic to that and making sure I create an environment where they can be the best that they can be. That's really changed. You know, back in the day, you just worked and you didn't worry about people's feelings and things of that nature. But today, you better. And so that's changed. Everything that we've talked about already seems to be on a faster track. Nowhere in my experiences have we had in the aggregate NIL, transfer portal, leadership change at the NCAA, realignment like is happening right now, the evolution of streaming versus linear, the aggregate of those things, and I didn't even mention some things, have been different. And so having to really understand that and adjust to it has changed. And so it's no longer just fundraising and winning games, right? It's all being able to lead a group of people in the face of those changes. That's changed over the years.
Going through all of that and seeing how the staff you've built, the people behind you have grown and gained experience through all that, is that, you talked about you trust that this staff, like the people you're leaving behind, can deal with the changes. Does that give you more confidence knowing they've been part of all that stuff?
Yeah, there you go. Great question. And that's, you know, I've always wanted to leave a place better than I found it. But I also want to leave a place that when the next person comes in, gives them a chance to transition in as smooth as possible. And they now have that ability with this team. And it always wasn't that way. You know, we've been unstable a little bit. And so now it's a situation where I feel they'll come in, they'll make changes. They will, based on their style, but they should be able to come in and take their time on the learning curve and allow the team to work, and then they ultimately will make the changes they need to make.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, I have two. One, first, you're not the first black athletic director, but you're probably the most, people would consider you the most influential, significant one. What does that mean to you? And the other one is probably not as pleasant. 5 years ago, when all the stuff happened with Urban and the Zach Smith stuff,
Yeah.
how much does that? How much do you think about that? How much part of your legacy do you think that is? Any reflections on that period?
Yeah, so I'll answer the second one first. You know, there's moments in my history where they were disappointed. It gets back to Rob's question. You know, 2011 was hard. That was harder than, you know, the time that we dealt with Urban, but that was hard, right? And I'm disappointed that we were there. Disappointed in the student athletes that had to bear the pain of that. Disappointed that Buckeye Nation had to bear the pain of that. Disappointed you guys had to cover that. So it was hard. And so, yeah, in my career, my legacy, not just here, Arizona State and Iowa State and Eastern Michigan, you know, there's been times when I wish I could have done something different. There's no question about it. And that one you just raised, no question. You know, I don't know. I really shouldn't. I don't want to talk about that. That's not important. But you know, any leader who says that everything was smooth and they look back and they wouldn't have changed the decision they made, I'm not so sure they're being 100% honest with you. But no, some are perfect. I'm just not perfect. You know, give me your first question again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were not the first.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, it's always been an honor. You know, I decided this years ago. You know, I was 29 as an athletic director, and you know, one of the few, and I think it was only 2 at that time. And I decided that you know, I was just going to do my job and try and do it excellently, and disregard the color of my skin. And that was hard because there were a lot of rooms that I walked into in the 80s, early 90s, where there were people in the room that didn't want me there. And I knew that. Fortunately, I was able to be embraced by the people who did want me there, the Cedric Dempseys of the world, the DeLoss Dodds, the, God bless him, Michael Cleary of the world, who embraced me right away. And there was those others that I knew that didn't want me there. You know, I've always felt that it was an honor and a privilege to be the first. And I didn't see it as a burden, except that in the early years, I knew I couldn't fail. Because if I failed, I'd be the excuse back in the day. That's not true today in a lot of places. Still exists, but not as true today with the hiring authorities as it was then. Because if I failed, it would have been, see, they can't do it. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I've been blessed to have this career.
Fourth row right, Pete Nakos on 3.
Gene, Greg Sankey was on the Paul Feinbaum show yesterday and spoke about where the college football playoff stands right now. Would you like it to be re-examined with all of the realignment movements in the last 10 days? And would you be open to an idea possibly where all 12 teams could be up for maybe the top 4 spots in the playoff?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, and you know, I have tremendous respect for Greg. He and I go back years serving on NCAA council committees, and I think he's outstanding. And so I was texting him this morning about this decision, and you know, he's going to be in it a while. So I don't know. I haven't been in those rooms. I haven't thought about that. I like the 12-team playoff, but they do have to figure out, you know, the new format, considering the conferences, and they have to figure out the revenue share, all that. So I trust Greg. I trust Tony Petitti. So I leave it to them.
Second row left, Steve Hellwagon.
Steve, what's up, brother?
Yep.
24/7 Sports.
Congrats. I remember interviewing you when you got the job. And,
Yeah, back in the day, I didn't have gray hair.
The before and after pictures of everybody who comes through here are pretty stark. But you can talk freely. You're going to be out of this in a year or so. Just in your mind, you know, USC and UCLA. You look at it, you say, you're gaining the Los Angeles market, California. Oregon and Washington, to me, doesn't feel like Ohio State benefits, at least monetarily, a whole lot from that.
what was the end game? What is the end game in all these chess pieces moving around in your mind?
Yeah, well, first, I have a lot of respect for Oregon and Washington. Keep in mind, when we studied UCLA and USC, we also studied Oregon and Washington, so our learning curve in this decision was not that hard. I know those athletic directors, Jen at Washington and Rob at Oregon, good friends and really great colleagues. But they're AAU institutions, strong academic institutions. They're in markets. When you look at the demographics of the Northwest, it's a young population. It's a young population. So when Tony gets to the point of renegotiating a new contract and we have streaming, that demographic might be more amenable to that type of platform. But when you look at the new coaches AP poll, I think Oregon and Washington are ranked in the top 25, right? They have proven themselves as an institutions that invest in their athletic programs. They're valuable institutions to bring into our league. So you got to think long haul. If I was just thinking competitively, no, I don't want them, man. I don't want to play them. But that's not, how you do business. So I just think they're great institutions. They're going to be. It's going to be exciting for our league, for Washington and Oregon to come in at the same time as USC and UCLA. It's going to be exciting for our fans. When they go to Washington or go to Oregon, they're cool places. So I think there's a lot of positive elements around it. Sure, there's some negatives, but the positives outweigh that.
You said you didn't want to be part of a model where the athletes were employees or paid directly. You guys turned a $20 million profit, or whatever the exact number was. Some of that, an 8-home game last year, probably factored into that. And with an increase in television money going forward, at least for your league, at some point, don't you feel like the athletes deserve some of that money that the schools are bringing in, aside from the collectives? Would this, in some way, streamline this entire process of what we all are being led to believe is a bidding war for high school athletes right now with NIL collectives? You can speak freely. You're leaving this model.
I'm not gone yet, though. I'm not gone yet, Steve. Don't go too deep there. You're getting emotional. So get to the question. What's the question?
Tell us what's going on. Do you feel that there's any way you can justify not paying the players going?
Yeah, first of all, I do not believe that student athletes should be employees. That's a whole new relationship. Now, to the heart of your question, we need to continue to look at ways where we provide monetary support to the student athlete. People forget all the time about the investments we currently make. Okay, so you, as an athlete in football, you get room, board, books, or tuition, and remember, we got cost of attendance approved. That wasn't a part of the scholarship model. And remember, the Austin money, the $5,980, that's added to your scholarship. So should there be more money added to that line item? Sure, I'm fine with that. But I want to make sure it's tethered to something educationally as opposed to a paycheck. That's not what I want. So I agree with your premise that we always have to look at ways to invest in student athletes. Now keep in mind that the other part of what we do, and you guys see that big circle of care out there when you walk out of this room, all that costs money. So every student athlete, unlike the rest of the students on our campus, every student athlete has at least 9 people around them that they can go to for help. Our sports science investment, you get me going. The dollars that we invest to help Marvin Harrison be Marvin Harrison from the time he was a puppy to now are significant. Now, you don't count that money. The general public doesn't count that money because they don't see it. And I understand that. But to the premise of your question, yeah, I've always been, that's why I fought for cost of attendance. That's why I fought for parents getting stipends when they travel. So I always believe in that. So I don't disagree with your premise. I disagree with they should be employees. That's a whole new ballgame when you take them to the employee level.
Front row middle, Joey Cobb.
Does that answer your question, Steve?
Gene, when you look back on your time here in 2020 about the financial crunch and schools that have cut sports, when you look back on your accomplishments, where does that fit into the fact that you were able to keep Ohio State with 36 varsity sports?
Yeah, that's a proud moment. That's a great question. I appreciate that, Joey. It's hard to sustain a 36 sport model in this world, especially when you need to make the investments that Steve talked about and make the investments in our facilities and in all those type of things, and our costs go up anywhere from 5 to 6% a year just naturally because of travel and things of that nature. So probably the fact that we've been able to sustain 36 sports, proud of our coaches for working within the expenditure guidelines that we've provided them, and they've done a great job in that area. Our unit managers as well. So it's hard, and we will continue to fight that. Hopefully the next person will do that. Not sure, that'll be their call, but yeah, really proud of that. And when you look across the country, it's been difficult to reduce sports. So I don't see that as an option for the future.
Do you see that as a challenge for the next person who steps in your shoes to manage all those sports, and what advice did you have for them?
Yeah, just, it's a business decision, they'll have to make, and that is a challenge, but when you got good people like the coaches we have and the support staff we have, you can figure it out. And so I really don't know what advice I would give them except be good at what you do.
Right next door, Tim May, Lettermen Row.
I was going to ask you one thing, but I want to ask you
How do I get one of those on 3 hats, man?
Yeah, I've got plenty of them. Some of them are trucker hats. I'm not going to wear them. I wanted to ask you one thing, but I wanted to ask one thing following up on Steve's questions. Should there be some kind of bonus structure, though, set up for athletes just like there are for coaches? If, in fact, you get into the college football playoff, I mean, there's a possibility of playing 4 games in that thing. Mm-hmm. And the wear and tear there is obvious to anybody, compared to the regular student athlete who doesn't get into that. Should they share some of the bonus situation that's coming from the college football playoff?
I don't know what model. I've always believed that if there's a way that you can find an opportunity to provide additional resources to student athletes, you should do that. And there's a million ideas like yours on how to do that. So I don't know if that's the right model, but that one would take work. You just don't throw out an idea and say that's the right one. It takes work to evaluate the effects of that. What's the taxes on the student athlete? What does that mean to them? So there's just, getting back to Steve's question, there's a way to do it where, you can avoid a lot of those issues, but I don't know what those models, what my colleagues would embrace nationally as a model.
And Pat Chun at Washington State, Martin Germain at UCLA, Diana Sabo now at Southern Utah.
Utah State.
Yeah, Utah State, yeah. I get those mixed up. You have brought forward diverse people into athletic administration during your time and stuff. How proud are you of that? And was that a focus of your regime that you wanted to further other people's dreams?
Yeah, I mean
I know it sounds kind of sappy, but it has happened.
No, that's true, Tim. I mean, I was blessed to have the opportunity to have those 3, and Heather Like at Pitt, Ben Jay. I mean, we had a staff that was very diverse, and we continue to do that. And that's part of the effort, and so it kind of ties back a little bit to Bill's question. Back in the day, there wasn't a pipeline, of African Americans, and so we created these opportunities and these seminars. I actually hosted one here years ago, and just trying to create opportunities for young people to get into the pipeline. And so those that you mentioned, we developed and got them out there. And I wasn't the only one. Kevin White did the same thing when he was at Duke. And so there was a concerted effort to improve the diversity of our industry by a few of my colleagues.
One last quickie. Do you feel like, you're stepping away into this school year, but do you feel like college athletics are in a good place, or is this like I was talking with one guy, he said, college football has never been better on the field and more chaotic off it. I mean,
Yeah, you know,
is that a good way of putting it?
It kind of ties to some of these other questions. College athletics is in a great place. It's in a great place. You have to have a perspective. And so the student athletes that we serve, that's where you got to go. Forget about all the other stuff that's happening. Is the student athlete having a great experience? You know, are their talents and their gifts being optimized for them? Not just the program, but for them. Are we making the investments necessary so that they can be the best that they can be and chase their dreams? And I don't know what it is everywhere else, but I can tell you here, our student athletes are off the chain. Our volleyball team, our women's basketball team, our men's team, I can just go straight down the list. And those athletes are having a quality educational experience. So all the other stuff is minutia to me. At the end of the day, that's what I care about. The graduation ceremony to have a Justin Fields a year ago, come back from Chicago, a multimillionaire, and walk. Come on. So I think what we have to do as a society is keep that in our focus. If a school's not doing that, then we need to call them out. All the other stuff is just what you do. It's business. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Right behind him, Bill Landis.
There's no dots in there, Bill, or what?
Gene, just to be clear on something, should the position come to exist in the near future, would you like to be the commissioner of football? Excuse me.
Hell no.
Next.
Given all the change with football and its importance, like top down for any athletic department that plays at the level that you all play at, how important is the relationship with the head football coach and your successor, and the process of finding your successor, like the balance between making sure Ryan is compatible and like-minded about the future of football with that person, but also not effectively choosing his own boss?
Yeah, that is critical. That is, most important. So Ryan and I are aligned like it's never been. I don't know. We got an emotional tie because we share a lot of beliefs, and he's just a good human being. So because of my football background, I can talk to him about who's their left tackle, who's their right tackle, where we are with the quarterback, what's the issues here, what's the issues there. So we have great conversations, but also alignment with the industry, all the issues that we've talked about, getting his feedback, and such an easy conversation because he's smart. So yes, the answer to your question is that alignment has to exist. You can't have conflict there. And I look across the country, and I see that all of you can see, they're not aligned. So yeah, that's critical. He's I'm going to miss him when it's all said and done. He's the real deal.
Time for a couple more. Fourth row left, Adam Jardy, Columbus Dispatch.
Hey, Adam.
Gene, congratulations.
Thank you, buddy.
What, in your mind, does a conference season look like for an 18-team conference when you're talking about a sport like men's basketball where you already play 20 games? How does the math add up for a sport like that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great, Adam. We haven't had our call yet on scheduling. We talked about it Monday. We had a call, and so that's going to be set up for us over the next couple of weeks to begin those conversations. So I'm not really sure. We have a scheduler in the league that will give us recommendations and advice, and they know our principles. So I just don't know at this point. I'm sorry.
When you start looking at going to the West Coast, do you think it makes sense to package games like USC, then UCLA a few days later to avoid on some of the fatigue of travel across the country?
Yeah, that's already been talked about as something we need to consider. So not just for basketball, but for all our sports. If our women's soccer team is going out to play UCLA, then they should have a day in between and play USC. So those scenarios, our senior women administrators have done a phenomenal job setting up our framework for that. But now with Oregon and Washington coming in, we kind of have to reevaluate and see if that framework still works.
Where do other sports other than football fit into the conversation about expanding the conference?
Yeah, so each sport is different. You know, what we can't do is look at, you know, all of them holistically. You know, tennis is different than volleyball, and swimming is different than track, so you have to kind of look at them that way. And so our senior women administrators have done a great job of looking at each individual sport, their nuances, their seasons, their ability to have postseason competition, you know, in the conference and nationally. So they've created a framework that still they're working on, and they'll continue to work on now at Oregon and Washington's end. So all of them have the similar issues as basketball, but now we just got to kind of dig in deeper. That makes sense.
And right behind Adam, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
On the personal side, curious when the calendar hits July next year, is there anything you're looking forward to finally do?
Yeah, you know, that first week, I think we're going with our family to Colorado somewhere. So, you know, Sheila's already figured that out. And but yeah, you know, my plan is to move on, get out of the way, and let the new leader lead, and not be in her or his hair. So that's the deal. But yeah, I'm looking forward to July. And I may come back to one of your press conferences just to bug you guys. You know, maybe Tim will give me a hat and I can sit in the back and ask questions or something like that. Yeah.
Actually, I do have one more question. Fifth row middle, Braden Moles, Buckeye Sports Bulletin.
Gene, over the next 11 months for you, balancing wanting to leave, you know, a positive landscape for the next AD and still having a job for you to do, how do you balance kind of, or I guess how do you envision your kind of initiatives and focuses over these next 11 months?
Yeah, great question. I intend to sit down with my team and have a conversation about, okay, what should I make sure I focus on this year? You know, there's a lot of things to do, but in my short time, I'll take their advice. You know, what do you guys think I should focus on? So I don't make those decisions by myself. So haven't done that yet, but you know, at some point I'll sit with them and we'll brainstorm, and you know, I'm sure fundraising will be in there because, you know, that's a large part of the job. But you know, I'll just have to talk to them and get their feedback, and then I'll focus based upon what they say.
Gene, thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you. Appreciate it, Jerry.
A couple of you guys I know have texted me. They wanted to ask Gene a one-on-one question. Well, Gene's been gracious enough to give us a little bit more time. So if you Clay pop up, you can take him right outside if you want.